you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, 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 welcome to all of you. It is webinar number 241 since we started on April 5, 2020. What a journey it has been. It is Child's Month in Jamaica. It is Mental Health Awareness Month in USA. And we are continuing our journey of providing support to help our children. It is such a joy to have all of you, whether you're from Trinidad or Jamaica or USA or Antigua or Zimbabwe, wherever you are from. We say big welcome to the show, to the event today. It is such a delight to have all of you here. Right now, I'd like to invite all of you to just bow with us in prayer. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunities that we have to come before you in this manner. I pray, God, that you will just show up in a very special way today. We pray, Lord, that we will be led by your Spirit. We ask your blessing on presenter. We ask your blessing on moderator. We ask your blessing on participants and all who serve. Thank you for Stephen and his unswerving commitment to excellence. Thank you for the technical skills that he has displayed. We pray that you just bless our time together as only you can. Lord, be glorified in our time together, we pray. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I would like to extend a very warm word of welcome to all of you. Janika, it's great to have you and all the other persons who are in the forum. Yes, it's going to be another significant gathering as we talk about the state of affairs of our children. Our children are hurting to the point that many of them have given up hope. And we have an outstanding woman of God who has worked extensively in providing support to children who are hurting and who has been an advocate, and she will be our special guest today. We also have an outstanding lady who will be our moderator. Yes, our special guest will be Betty Ann Blaine and our moderator, Francesca Tavares. I want to just say, you know, wherever we are, we continue to seek to stand in the gap for our children. I want to commend all of you who continue to play your part in helping our children at whatever level they are at. The counselors, those of you in the school system, those of you in our Sunday school, our churches, in our community-based activity organizations, we say big welcome to all of you. And thanks to all you do for our children. Our moderator today is a passionate woman of God. She's an advocate. She is a lawyer, an attorney by training, and one who is not ashamed to stand up for what she believes. She is a part of the leadership of Love March movement. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with joy that I introduce to you and invite our moderator for today, Miss Francesca Tavares, to just lead us from here. Francesca, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's an exciting time. Today, as Dr. Thomas mentioned, we will be looking at the story of our sister Betty Ann Blaine. And in particular, we want to focus on the state of affairs of our children in this nation. We're celebrating Child's Month, May Child's Month. And it's an important time to focus our hearts, our minds, or attention towards not just our homes generally, but our children. What can we be doing to support our nation's children at this time, at this juncture of history? How can we stand in the gap and be intercessors on their behalf? How can we ensure that the future that they will receive will be a bright one? And how can we stand alongside veteran advocates like Betty Ann Blaine? Mrs. Blaine, are you on? Are you able to hear us? Can you let us know?
Yes, and good afternoon to you and to all of the participants.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know that you're very busy, and these days you must be extra busy. I'm telling you.
Yes, we are.
But we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. Sure. Who is Betty Ann Blaine, and how did she get involved in the work of child advocacy?
Thank you, Francesca. And I just want to say thanks to Donovan and Faith and the team, Truth Life, for inviting me to just share some thoughts with you. It's still afternoon in Jamaica. I'm sure it's evening in other places, but it's a pleasure to be here. Well, let me just say this.
Just before you continue there, I don't know if it's deliberate, but we're not seeing you on camera right now. I don't know if it's only from my end. So, okay. Great. Wow, the beautiful Betty Ann Blaine.
There we go.
Yes, and all of you in the forum right now, I want to encourage you to just send out the Zoom link, invite persons. It's going to be another great webinar right here. It's hosted by Choose Life International, established in Jamaica in 2008, in the USA in 2018, active in Cuba and other parts of the world. Welcome, ladies. Over to you both.
Yeah, great job, Donovan and Faith.
Thank you.
Okay, so Francesca, you asked me, who is Betty Ann Blaine? Here is, if you looked at my biography, and I do a brief biography, I don't like long introductions and stuff like that. If you looked at my brief biography, you'd notice that the first thing I put there is that I am a Christian activist and advocate. So that's the first thing. I am a child of God. I'm a Christian activist and advocate, and I'm also a children's advocate. So you ask, who is Betty Ann Blaine? I'm all those things. But the most important thing for me is that I am a child of God.
And from that position of being a child of God, you are able to advocate for children. Isn't that something?
It is. Children, yeah, because children are very, very, very special to God. It's a very special place in Jesus's heart. He talked about the kids. He celebrated with the kids. You remember the kids worshiped with him.
Yes.
And he also gave us a model for how we should care for children. In addition, he gave us a warning. He gave us a warning, Jesus did, of what would happen if we harmed our children. And so, yeah, when we talk about the children, we're talking also about God and Jesus Christ and his love for these little ones. Let me just say this. Children, in my many years of doing this work, I have come to know, and I perhaps knew it even before I started work as a child advocate, that children have a natural capacity for God. They have a natural capacity for God. And if you train them up from the youngest age, then they will not depart from God. Children have a natural capacity for God. We know that. What is troubling, though, is that the enemy knows that as well. So we must bear that in mind. But yeah, God loves our children. Children are special. And yeah, I love them very much too.
All right, thank you for sharing that. So can you let us know a bit of how did love and care for children generally perhaps move from your own home to caring for children in a macro sense? Why did you choose to go on this path of activism and advocacy, or how did that path choose you?
Okay, well, let me just give you a little bit of the background. I lived in the United States for a long time. I lived in the United States during the late 60s, 70s, and part of the 80s. I thought I was going to pursue an academic career. I wanted to be a professor of history. And so I started off, lived in Brooklyn for many years, went to Hunter College, got my first degree from Hunter, and then went on to Columbia and was registered in the MA PhD program at Columbia in New York. I intended my area of specialization was Southern Africa history. I wanted to teach history, to be a professor of history. That was my intention. While I was at Columbia, I went back to teach as an adjunct lecturer at Hunter College. I spent some time teaching at Pratt Institute, and I spent about 2 years teaching at the University of South Florida in Tampa. So that was what I thought was going to be my career. And I have to tell you that in the most, I would say, miraculous way, in the most amazing way, God brought me back to Jamaica. And this was around 1983. And I gave up my academic career, no regrets at all. And when I came home, I taught a little bit at the University of the West Indies, but I gave up my academic career to just work with children, and mainly children of the poor and working classes. So when I came back to Jamaica, I spent a lot of time working with Vouch. I don't know, Francesca, you might be too young to know who Vouch is. I don't know. The older folks would know Vouch. Vouch Vouch has been around even before I was born. And Vouch is a voluntary organization for the upliftment of children. When I began working with Vouch, when I returned home, Vouch had the largest social work department in the entire country. Not even government was as big as Vouch. A lot of social workers, a lot of counselors. Vouch operated what Jamaican people know as a creche or creche, where you would take your babies for care. It operated a little basic school, had a huge social work department. And much of what I have learned about working in communities, working with children, working with the poor, working with families, I learned from my time at Vouch. I learned a lot from those old-time social workers at Vouch. And Vouch was a very important organization back in even before the 80s, but especially in the 80s and 90s. Vouch pioneered parenting education in Jamaica. They had a show on RJR called My Child, Your Child and You. Your Child and You was the name of the show. And it provided parent tips, parental tips, positive parenting tips for families and children. Vouch was the first organization, and perhaps the only one since, that took parenting education to the workplace. In the 80s, of course, we had the free zone going on the ports, and a lot of people were employed, a lot of mothers, fathers too, working in the free zone. And Vouch would go in. Vouch would go in at lunchtime, their lunchtime, and would discuss parenting issues with the workers. Nobody else, I don't know if anybody else has done it since that time, but I got a lot of experience with Vouch. And before I left the United States to come home in '83, I had founded in the United States a support group called Vouch USA. And that group was around for quite some time and provided, not only financial support, but other types of support, in-kind help, human support. People would come home and work at Vouch or work in the communities. So I give a lot of credit to the background I got at Vouch, working with children and families and communities.
Okay, thank you. So moving from Vouch, how did you begin your own organization?
Okay,
Hear the Children's
all right,
Cry?
Sure. Well, even before I started Hear the Children's Cry, I had founded another children's organization named Youth Opportunities Unlimited, or YOU for short. It was the first fully structured mentoring program in Jamaica. When I lived and worked in the United States, one of the jobs I had for several years was working with an organization in Manhattan named the Commonwealth Fund. The Commonwealth Fund was a very important foundation that provided financial help and other kinds of support for African-American children and adults. And they were the first organization in the United States to start mentoring programs. That was a Commonwealth Fund. I worked for them. And that was what I learned, where I learned about mentoring and how important being a mentor is. And so when I came back home, I came back with that background and that expertise. And I founded Youth Opportunities Unlimited, which was a mentoring organization where we were around for many, many, many years. And we worked with children who needed mentors in the high school system. We trained churches and other NGOs to start their own mentoring programs. And so that was prior to my starting Hear the Children's Cry. So let me say about Hear the Children's Cry. Last year we celebrated 20 years of work in Jamaica, Hear the Children's Cry. And we started out of a crisis. 20 years ago or so, there was one particular period in Jamaica where, and this happened over a period of weeks and maybe months, 2 or 3 months or so, where 8 children had been murdered within a very short period of time. And we were alarmed. This was 20 years ago. We were alarmed, a group of us, and we said, but this is, we can't live like this. How do we live in a country where in a short period of time, 8 children are murdered across Jamaica? And so we decided that we needed to do something about that. And we mobilized other stakeholders. We mobilized the children. Some of these murders took place along Spanish Town Road. So we got in touch and we began working with the schools, basic schools, primary schools, high schools, and we decided to mount a protest. We decided to mount a protest, say to the people of Jamaica, we can't live like this. This can't be the new normal in Jamaica, where we see our children being slaughtered this way and we're doing nothing. And so we set a date for the march. We had a march along Spanish Town Road, and the children marched, not just the adults, the children from basic schools, primary schools and high schools marched along the Spanish Town corridor. And we gathered at the corner of Maxwell Avenue and Spanish Town Road, and we had a rally. We had a rally. And out of that event and out of that particular crisis, I formed Hear the Children's Cry. And so it's been 20 years of working on behalf of Jamaican children.
We just want to thank you for your faithful service over those 20 years. Your labor of love has not gone unnoticed, and it has made an impact.
Thank you.
Though some persons would have you feel otherwise, it's not true. You have been doing a good work. Don't come down from the wall. All right.
Thank you, Francesca.
I do have a question on that though. How has the state of our children changed over the span of your service? It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
So it started in 2003. It's now 2023.
That's right.
What does the climate for our children look like now?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I ponder on it all the time because after almost 40 years of being a child advocate and 20 years of our work with Hear the Children's Cry, we are heartbroken oftentimes. There are times we feel a little despondent, but we never give up hope because, you know, when you work with kids, you can't give up hope ever, ever, ever. So we press on, but we are disturbed that after all this time, things have not really improved significantly. Now, there have been some gains. There have been some things that we have done in this country to benefit our children. For example, we passed that. Yes, we passed that big piece of legislation in 2004, the Child Care and Protection Act, which is now under review, by the way. It's 19 years old. Aspects of it are being reviewed right now. So that was one big accomplishment for children in this country. Yeah, the Ananda Alert. Now, the Ananda Alert is very close to my heart. And it's close to my heart because I knew Ananda Dean personally. Ananda Dean, I knew her dad very well. And she used to come. I used to have home church at the back of my house for quite some time, maybe about, I don't know, 2 years or so. My friend, who is a lay pastor, and myself had home church, Sunday school, I should say. And the children from Whitehall would walk across, I live across Constant Spring, and they would walk over every Sunday morning to come for Sunday school. Ananda was one of those children. In fact, she was the first one of the group. She was very bright, the first one of the group who we taught them the 91st Psalm, and she knew it by heart. She knew that psalm by heart, and she learned it very quickly. So I was very close to Ananda. She attended Swallowfield Primary and Junior High. And the evening when she went missing, her dad called me perhaps about 6 o'clock the evening to say, Miss Blaine, Ananda has not come home. It was very unusual because she would always come home at the same time every evening. So they were a little concerned. However, it was still 6 o'clock, not nightfall. And I said to him, listen, call me back if she hasn't come home. Well, about an hour after that, maybe around 7 o'clock, he called again to say that Miss Blaine, Ananda has not come home. And we're very, very, very worried. So they mounted a posse. Ananda's mother lived in Grand Span, which was where she lived. She would take the bus typically from her school on Whitehall, she would have to take a bus to Red Hills Road, then another bus from Red Hills Road to the bus terminus in Halfway, then another bus to Grandstand. And you know, every time I speak about this story, it tells me that we need to do something about proper transportation for our children. For her to leave from Whitehall Avenue to get to Grandstand, which is not that far really, it's far walking. There's no bus, there's no public transportation. She had to go to Red Hills Road, then to Halfway bus terminus and back up to Grandstand. So anyway, the dad said they would mount a posse and go to the bus terminus in Halfway to look for her. It so happened that I was a talk show host on Nationwide Radio at the time. My show was on the agenda. And I would come on every morning at 9 o'clock for a 3-hour show. Before me was Emily Crooks and Naomi Francis. They would do 6 to 9. And I took a decision from that night that if they didn't find Ananda, I was going to call in to the radio station from the 6 o'clock show and begin talking about, telling people that she was missing, describing her, what she had on, her school uniform, and etc., etc. And that was exactly what I did. And so by the time I got to my show at 9 o'clock, a lot of Jamaicans had already heard that this little 11-year-old had gone missing. And so we began to churn out, put out the information on radio. We began sending out her photographs by faxing and emails, and we mounted a big campaign from that radio station the following morning. And as I sat behind the microphone that morning, it dawned on me that Jamaica needed something that was equivalent to the Amber Alert in America, a rapid response system for when children go missing, because prior to that, you made a report, you'd have to wait 24 hours. And so as I sat behind the microphone, I just said, we need an Ananda Alert. And I was naming it after Ananda Dean. Well, the Golden government at the time decided that they wanted to do something about this problem. They adopted the Ananda Alert, which I named, and we since then have had the Ananda Alert system, which is of great benefit to the country, because now when a child goes missing, the report is made immediately from whichever police station across the country, and it's sent to the Central Communications Office at Hope Road, and it goes out to all police stations with descriptions and if we have photographs and so on. So you asked me about the Ananda Alert, didn't you, Francesca?
I did mention it as an achievement. I was asking, what's the state now of our
what's
children?
happening with missing children?
What's happening now?
Right. Well, Hear the Children's Cry is the only NGO, non-government organization in Jamaica, that is working almost exclusively on the problem of missing children, missing and abducted children. Prior to COVID, we used to have every month, sometimes over 100 reports of children going missing within 1 month. Since COVID, we noticed the numbers fell during COVID, but we recognized that it must have been because of underreporting, because people were not as mobile, communities were locked down, people not going out at night to go to police stations and so on. But today, to date, we still have every month close to 90 children, 80 odd, and on average, maybe about 80 children reported missing every month. I want to hasten to say, though, that most of those children, in fact, return home. Thank God. But we have about 20% of Jamaican children who, when they go missing, we don't know exactly where they are. They don't return home. And we don't know whether these children, we don't know exactly where they are. We don't know if they're victims of, say, child trafficking. We've been asking that question for a long time. We don't know if they're dead or alive. We don't know. We don't know. I don't know if you saw the story. This is just a few days ago, of the 15-year-old teenager who has gone missing since last week, Wednesday. Police have been asking for help to find her. But not only did she go missing, she went missing with her 10-month-old baby, and she's only 15 years old. And so we have these kinds of cases where children go missing. They go missing for long periods of time, and we don't know exactly where they are. So it continues to be a very serious problem in Jamaica.
Yes. Man, you stating those figures, it's heartbreaking. What do you think we can do as a nation right now to better care for our children? How can we lower those numbers of missing children? Is there a trend? Is there a particular type of child that goes missing? How can we prevent it?
Let me just say, Fran, thanks for asking. And that too is such an important question. First of all, I want to ask every Jamaican here at home to be the eyes and ears and voice of our children. You know, look out for them. Children are everywhere. They live in our communities. They go to schools. They're on our streets. They take public transportation. So we're asking Jamaicans, look out for the kids. Look out for the kids. And look out for their welfare and well-being. We're also asking Jamaicans to be mentors. Be a mentor for a child. You know, there's so many kids in our schools who need help. They need help with materials for school, and we never ask mentors to give our children cash. Never. Not money. We don't give the kids cash or their families, but we provide the support if they need equipment, if they need laptops, or if they need uniforms for school or books, if they need help with lunch money, bus fare. People, you know, there's so many kids that people can help. And I just want to say to Jamaicans here and abroad, we all have our alma maters, you know, and I know Jamaicans contribute a lot, Jamaicans in the diaspora especially, to their alma maters. But it's not just about the material things, even though I know that's important, but it's to just be a mentor for a child. Oftentimes they don't have people, adults like us, to speak to. You know, they don't have people like us that they can talk to. And so we ask a mentor to be a friend for that child. We say parents give the children the roots and mentors give them the wings. We make them look at what's possible. What about their education? We have a program at Hear the Children's Cry called School Reintegration Program. That's a program where the children who were formerly runaways, they ran away, came back home, and they've gone back to school, thank God, because many of them, when they run away, they don't go to school and they do not go back to school. But the ones who go back, we have them in a school reintegration program where we work with the guidance counselors, the teachers, the principals, and their families to make sure that they stay in school and that they will graduate from school. We pay attention to their grades. We communicate with them regularly. That's the kind of support that, you know, people can give.
Okay, thank you. I know for human trafficking, for victims of human trafficking, there is a type of young person that is preyed upon. Tends to be persons, one, of the persons that are trafficked in our region tend to be sexual trafficking. That's the highest percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And of the numbers, it would be young persons. And of the young persons, it would be young females.
13
and
to
of
17.
Those young females, right?
13
of
to
those
17.
Females, it tend to be younger females who may have low familial attachments, who may have a lower self-esteem, who may be more willing to whose love tank is already low, and maybe be more willing to listen to the showering of affection by someone who would seek to exploit them.
Yeah.
Do you find that trend similar in young children who go missing as well? Is there a type of child that we should be more aware of and seek to protect and pour into?
Well, most of the children who go missing are girls, and most of them are teenage girls between 13 and 17. Boys go missing too, but most of them are in fact girls. And Jamaica, let me just say this, Jamaica is ripe for child trafficking and human trafficking, generally speaking, because we have a population of children who are poor. They will gravitate to things. You know, a lot of these traffickers lure them with things they can give them, jobs overseas and all kinds of things. And so the children gravitate to that. You can't, you know, there's no way to judge these kids, you know. We understand their living conditions and what's happening in terms of family life and so on. So Jamaica is a country ripe for trafficking. The traffickers know that. And our girls are most vulnerable. Although, quite frankly, I like to say that almost all Jamaican children are vulnerable in one way or another when you look at the environmental circumstances of their lives in this country. Francesca, just take a look at the Child Monument downtown Kingston, which I'm hoping Jamaicans on this forum, when you visit Jamaica, and certainly Jamaicans who live here, need to go and visit that monument downtown at the corner of Church Street and Tower Street. It's that monument dedicated to children who have died violently and tragically in our country. And you just have to visit that monument. Almost all of those names on that monument are children of the poor and working classes in Jamaica. And it's a very sad statement. The monument has the image of a child with the tears running down the face. And just recently, a group of us, different organizations, laid wreaths at the monument for Child Month. But our children are extremely vulnerable. There's no doubt, given the environmental circumstances of their lives.
That's true. That's true. So all children are vulnerable. The children of the poor are most vulnerable, and the girls are also extremely vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned as a way forward, something practical that we can do to stand with our children is to become a mentor. How do you go about doing that?
Well, look,
Betty, how do you do that?
Well, that's easy to do. When we had this structured mentoring program, which we no longer operate, we identified children in the school system. In our program, it was children in the high school system. And we did that through guidance counselors. You have to work with the schools. Most of our children of school age do in fact attend school. So they are in school. And so we would work with guidance counselors and teachers to identify those children who need mentors. And then in our program, we would train the mentors. We would have training for mentors before we match them to a mentee. So we had mentors and mentees. And to make sure that both mentor, we train the mentees as well, to let them know you know, what the expectations are. And we would also train the mentors, that's so they would know that as well. As we said before, one of the rules was that we wouldn't give children cash, nor their families, but we would support them if they needed material support. We would support. And we did a lot of motivational training, motivational talks. We exposed, one of the things we did in the mentoring program, which was crucial, was that we exposed these children to new life experiences. That's something, Francesca, mentors could do. Some of these children, some of the things we take for granted, right? Like maybe going to a restaurant, perhaps, or I don't know. I remember years ago I had a particular mentee, and when I said to her, let's go see it. It was a good movie. Let's go see it. She had never been to the movie theater before. The things so we take a lot of things for granted. That would be new life experiences for the children. We would take them to the Institute of Jamaica downtown. We would encourage them to join the library. Things like that. We take them to see a play, perhaps, new life experiences. And the best way, Francesca, to start doing that work would be through the school.
Thank you. Are there any organizations currently operating mentorship programs that you think any of our viewers could get could associate themselves with, could volunteer for, or do you suggest just bringing up a school and offering yourself?
Well, I believe, and Francesca, I'll promise that I'm going to send that information. Now, I know that the Ministry of Education at one point had a big interest in mentoring. I'm not sure that some of those umbrella parent groups across Jamaica, you know, that work with parents across Jamaica, if they have mentoring programs that are active right now, that are operational, but I will in fact inquire about that and let you know.
Thank you. And I think a good place to start, like you mentioned, are the parent teachers associations, you know, those parent bodies, the regional and island-wide PTA, the individual PTAs at your children's schools, or at a school that's nearby. You can call them and offer your services and says, I would like to be a mentor. What do you have in place, or how can I support a child at this school? And you'd be surprised at how willing our schools are to come alongside you, because they need the help.
They need the help. They need the help. And I'm so happy you mentioned about PTAs, because I'm a big proponent of working with PTAs. We do a lot of that at Here the Children's Cry. We make a lot of presentations at PTA meetings about safety for the children, about the problem of children running away from home. You know, what do you do when your child leaves? What do you do when your child comes back home? So we do a lot of parenting sessions. I'm big on PTAs. I think that is one of the areas we need to focus perhaps a lot more, or although we do have 2 national parenting organizations in Jamaica. But I think it's crucial we work with parents and schools work with parents. I think that's one of the ways to deal with the violence in schools, is to work with these parents. Let me give you a quick example. Years ago, when we ran the mentoring program, we decided to introduce ourselves to Kingston High School. That's a school at the corner of downtown, near Vouch, at the top of King Street and Hero Circle, Kingston High. So we decided that, so we went and we met with the principal of the school, meaning this is Youth Opportunities Unlimited, the mentoring program. And we said to the principal, this was before the start of the school term in September, because if you want to catch parents, all parents, you have to catch them at that first, very, very, very first meeting. PTA meeting when school starts in September. So we went ahead of time to the principal and we said, look, can you let us host the PTA meeting? We will do everything. We will prepare everything. We will provide everything. And, you know, with, of course, the support of the school. And the principal agreed. And so we got busy and we decided to make some big buttons that you can just pin onto your, you know, whatever, your clothes. And the button says, I am the best parent. That was what the button said, I am the best parent. So we got buttons so that every parent would get one when they arrive. Not only that, we treated it like a big conference. We treated it like a conference in a hotel in Kingston or wherever in Jamaica. And we got folders with the pouches, and we got information for the parents, information about positive parenting. We even put diets in there. What are some of the you know, least expensive ways to feed the children every day going to school? So we had everybody that walked in got a button. They got the folder with a lot of information in it. And we set up the auditorium at school with refreshments. We had refreshments. And then, of course, the principal and other folks made presentations. And then we were asked to make a presentation. And so we spoke to the parents and we said, parents, this is your school. You own this school. You own this school. This is not just a school over there at, you know, Kingston High. This is your school. And we said to them, the school needed a lot of repairs. We had asked the principal to tell us that. And she said it needed windows to be fixed, and they needed plants, and they needed other things. And we reached out to the parents in the meeting and we said, is there any of you who are carpenters? Because we had some fathers there and even mothers who are carpenters. And we said, anybody can bring plants? Well, I want to tell you, Francesca, that the week after that meeting, the principal called me and said, Mrs. Blaine, you're not going to believe this. The amount of plants that the parents bring in for the school. The fathers, some of them, had already come in and started fixing some of the windows that need to be fixed. Let me just say this, Francesca. We underestimate our people. We underestimate the poor. We underestimate the people who live in in inner city communities, right? But inner city communities don't just have needs, you know, they have resources. They have resources too.
Right. That's right. I love that.
We don't pay attention to that. We don't even respect them. We don't even respect them oftentimes, and they're crying for respect. And I know certainly for our teenage boys in our inner cities, I've done so much work in so many inner cities in Jamaica. They just want love and respect, you know, love and respect. They want to be recognized as human beings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on. The idea that you're not just serving, but serving the less fortunate. But citizens of the inner city communities in our country have things to give. They are viable members of our society.
They are.
And they long to respect. And they long to be empowered to protect their own children as well, and the children of our nation. That's wonderful. I'm going to ask you to think about some closing remarks of what's one thing that you'd like to say to our nation at this time. One thing, if you had one thing to say.
Sure.
And as you think on that, going to pull up some questions that I see in the chat.
Okay.
What are some of the checks in place to vet persons who refer themselves to be a mentor for a child?
Well, again, if you're gonna do mentoring, I would suggest that you get all the information that's necessary. As I said, mentors need to be trained. In our program, if you volunteered as a mentor, we would have to do a police check. We would have to do character checks. We would get references from not just one person, more than one, because you have to be very careful about how you choose people to work with children. But that type of information is available. So if anybody in your group or anybody would want to start a mentoring program, that information is absolutely available.
Wonderful. Just before I hand over to Stephen for the notices, there's one more question about adoption in Jamaica. I am aware that there is one agency that deals with adoption in Jamaica, that's Adoption Board through the CPFSA. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Ms. Lane, on the process of adoption?
Well, look, I know it's been difficult to adopt children in Jamaica. This has been, I hear it all the time. I believe that there has been some reform to the system. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. But look, when I talk with some of the officers, the adoption at CPFSA that work in the area of adoption, they say to me, it's so important. This is the thing about adoptions. You have to be very careful and you have to be very thorough, extremely thorough, and about who is adopting the child, all of those background checks. Sometimes it takes a long time. And so that's not an area that we work in specifically. I believe the process, people complain that it takes a long time, but I would prefer perhaps for us to be very careful than for us to send a child away for adoption, particularly outside of Jamaica, without doing the due diligence and doing the necessary checks and investigations that need to be done.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lane. And so I would encourage that person to check out childprotection.gov.jm//adoption for more information on how to begin the adoption process in Jamaica and get some advice from our social workers. And over to you, Stephen. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we'll have some closing remarks from you at the end. Over to you for the notices, Stephen.
Are you done with me now, Francesca?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're just going to have some notices and then we're going to hopefully be able to come right back for your final notice.
I would like, if I could, to jump off at 6 o'clock, but we're almost there. So I don't know how your time is going.
All right, let's just get through these notices very quickly then so that we can facilitate that jump off for our sister Betty Ann Blaine, who has presented so amazingly this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you agree. If this has been a good webinar for you, a good interview, just please put it in the chat, throw some emotes, show your likes, your appreciation for our very amazing guest here so that she knows you appreciated what she just shared. And of course, I would like to extend a special welcome to anybody just joining us. You've missed such an amazing presentation, and I would like for you to not miss it. So at any time you can, please just check out our Facebook or our YouTube. That's youtube.com/ChooseLifeInternational or facebook.com/ChooseLifeInternational to see the recording of this webinar. So you can catch it again and again and share it with your friends. And if you want to keep up to date on Choose Life International events, please put your email and name in the chat right now so you can be added to our mailing list. Yes, we just saw State of Affairs of Our Children with Betty Ann Blaine, and coming up next week, we have Celebrating Our Children. So we really want you to join us for that one. We just also want to remind you about our Geared to Live TV show with our wonderful host, Freddie Zara Jackson, every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. with repeats on Saturdays at 6 p.m. You can catch it live at mercyandtruth.tv or on Digicel channel 19 or Flow channel 671 or 601. Please just come on and check out the show. We are waiting for your view. And we'd like to also ask you to join us for our Choose Life International prayer time. Our last prayer time just passed last week. So the next one coming up next third Wednesday, that's June 21st, 2023, this same room at 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. We'll be continuing to remind you as we get closer to it. So prepare for a time of prayer and thanksgiving. If you'd like to support Choose Life International in cash or kind, the details are on the screen right now. So just check us out at www.chooselifeintl.org or contact Dr. Donovan Thomas directly at 876-869-3403. Or if you'd simply like to donate, you have our NCB Matilda's Corner branch information on the screen right now, 371-047-131. And that is our business checking account number. So thank you all very much for coming and look forward to more Choose Life activities in the near future. And of course, every week, our Choose Life International weekly webinar. Dr. Thomas, over to you.
I would just like to say a big thank you to you, Francesca. Betty, are you still there? I know Francesca
I'm here.
was asking. Yeah.
I'm here.
All right.
Francesca was asking for your significant roles in just making this afternoon, this evening's webinar possible. Betty, thank you for the work that you continue to do for the youth in Jamaica. And other parts. After Mrs. Betty and Blaine speaks, we will go for the countdown. Francesca, big thank you so much. And all of you who are in the forum and all who will watch it afterwards, thanks for your continued support to the work of Choose Life International, as God has called. Betty, Ann, over to you.
Thank you, Donovan. And look, I just want to congratulate Choose Life as well. I look at the work you've done in Jamaica with children and youth over many, many decades, and I want to thank you too, and Faith and Choose Life team. So I just want to say finally, thank you. I enjoyed this. It was a pleasure sharing with you. And my final comments would be to say, perhaps just to repeat what I said before, which was just for Jamaicans at home, be the eyes, ears, and voice of our children. Look out for them. To Jamaicans in the diaspora, you can do the same. You know, we get a lot of calls every day from Jamaicans abroad who have children and grandchildren and relatives here, and they need help. And so the diaspora also has a big role to play in the welfare, in advancing the welfare and the well-being of our children. So be the eyes, ears, and voice of our children. Mentor a child if you can. And I just want to say, let's pay attention to family life. I've been saying this for a long time. Donovan probably knows it. When you fix family life, you fix Jamaica. And so I'm a big proponent of that when we fix family life, we will in fact fix our country and fix our children. Thanks, Donovan. Thanks, Francesca. And thanks to all of the participants.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Having some technical difficulties.
continue to hour on a Sunday afternoon, every Sunday afternoon, 5.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We greatly appreciate you. And thank you so much to Sister Betty Ann Blaine, who shared with us this afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you also to Francesca, who moderated. And we look forward to another great webinar next week, same time, same place. Shalom.
Shalom.
Now for the countdown.
And now for the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shalom. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, shalom.